Hello, students. This is the first part of your assignment for Monday. And I have just a 4-point mini lecture here. Try to keep this to about 10 or 12 minutes to give you time to do the assignment 4 points. First, I wanted to introduce the Industrial Revolution. It'll be our big topic of the first couple of weeks here. I feel really weird talking in front of a chalkboard with a bunch of stuff written on it. Kind of feel like Glenn Beck. That's a joke for your parents. If any parents are watching this, I hope that you laughed. I will not be like Glenn Beck, though. I will keep it to facts and normal things. So, the Industrial Revolution, a little bit of this. I apologize to fourth period. This will be a repeat from what you heard on Wednesday, if you were in class on Wednesday, but everybody else didn't hear this. It is one of only 2 times in all of human history of the world that there was a truly life-altering event, something that changed life for people around the world. The first life-altering event would have to be the invention of agriculture, and that goes way back before the time period we studied this year, though we referenced it at the beginning of the year. About 10,000 years ago, agriculture was invented at a couple of different places on Earth, and then it spread fairly quickly to most of the people on Earth and led to the development of the first civilizations. But it really changed the way people lived. Before the invention of agriculture, wherever you lived around the world, you were a hunter and gatherer. You didn't live in a permanent year-round dwelling. You would be nomadic. You would move around and look for food. Much of your day would be spent gathering food. Population was low. Human population was low. But kind of interesting, the history teachers that go back and study such things have found that people were pretty healthy. When they find skeletons of hunter-gatherer people, they're strong, they're healthy. They had a varied and balanced diet, and they got a lot of exercise, which is a good way to live. So anyway, after agriculture spreads, people's way of life fundamentally change. They're going to live in a dwelling year-round. They're going to eventually get into small cities and live in that way. They're going to have jobs other than gathering food, because a farmer can grow food for more people, and those other people can do other things. So again, as we learned at the beginning of the year, you start to get the development of civilization, writing, things of that nature, only after the invention of agriculture. So that's the first life-altering event. It changed the way people lived, where they lived, how they worked, and what they did during their day. And it ended up all over the world. The second change like that is the Industrial Revolution of the 1700s in Britain and the 1800s everywhere else. It fundamentally changed the way people live. It changed the type of jobs we have. It changed everything about it. In 4th and 6th period, I just pointed out around my classroom, the desk that they're sitting on, made in a factory. The paper they're writing with, they had paper before the Industrial Revolution, but it would have been expensive. It would have been like made by hand somehow. The machine made paper, 100 sheets for $1. Process of the Industrial Revolution. Essentially, every single thing in my classroom is created in a factory somewhere in an industrial process and wouldn't have existed in this form more than 200 years ago. So that's how life-changing the Industrial Revolution is to human society. All this stuff we have is from the Industrial Revolution. Before the Industrial Revolution, there still was trade, but a lot of what people had, they made. The food they ate, they made. The clothes they wore, they made. And that certainly is not the case now. Think about how few things we actually make ourselves from scratch. I don't grow much of my own food. I don't make my own clothing. I certainly didn't build my car or anything of that nature. So the Industrial Revolution was that life-changing. And I wanted to make sure as well, sometimes it's not clear in the textbook or whatever, the heart of the Industrial Revolution is having a power source for something. The power before the Industrial Revolution was either human power or animal power, or in a few places like water power, where water would turn a wheel, and a lot of times they had figured out how to connect that into a flour mill or whatever to grind flour. So that was the extent of your power choices. So the heart of the Industrial Revolution is being able to power, they could power things by burning wood. Like, they had fire from burning wood as a source of power. But the heart of the Industrial Revolution is being able to power things with a more efficient and effective power source. And a lot of that has been fossil fuels. So the first one is coal. Coal is easier to get out of the ground, especially in Britain where the Industrial Revolution started, easier to get out of the ground than oil or natural gas. So coal provided the power for the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Later on in the 1900s, the main power source transitions to being oil or natural gas. And of course, as you all know, now we're trying to transition for the first time away from fossil fuels to some sources of clean energy. And it's really yet to be determined if those sources of clean energy will be able to provide the same amount of power that at this point we've become accustomed to using. So that's the big question for, I think, your adult lifetimes. So I just wanted to introduce the Industrial Revolution in that way. When I teach AP World History, it's super clearly taught that those are the two things in world history that were truly life-changing. The invention of agriculture 10,000 years ago, and the Industrial Revolution not very long ago, 200 years. So please think of it in that way. A super, super important event, definitely the most important event in the last 500 years, which is the history that we study from my class. All right, number two, I want to transition to the vocabulary that a lot of students ask about. By the way, I spent hours typing in all of your vocab. If you put a vocab term on the left side, I explained it on the right side. Go back and look at that assignment, pretty please, or else I put a lot of time in there for nothing if students don't go back and look in at that. So look back at that Why Britain assignment, see the grade you got, see why you got that grade, and see my explanation for any terms that you didn't understand. Make sure to do that. And those of you that did that assignment but didn't put any terms down, that's going to cost you points. There was some hard reading, some difficult vocabulary in that reading, so you need to have something to put on there. That's my chance to interact and teach, and I learn a lot from that to see what sort of vocabulary students are struggling with. That helps me as a teacher. So if you don't put anything down for that, A, it doesn't help me learn how to be a better teacher, and B, you lose points because it's kind of lazy to not put anything down on that. So please do. These were common words where I found myself typing them in a lot, so I figured I'd handle this in the video here. First, the word aristocrats. That, in the purpose of the article, is talking about the English dukes and lords and nobles, the people that would have been born with like hereditary titles in England. So aristocrat, wherever that word is used, it means like rich people and people who were born rich, people who were born into rich families. In England, in that article specifically, it'd be referring to the people that were lords and ladies and nobles that were born into having an actual like title for who they were. The second one, guilds. It's okay, it's totally okay you didn't know this word. This goes back to the Middle Ages, which was not a part of what this class was supposed to teach. A guild would be something in the Middle Ages, like say a carpenter. They had carpenters in the Middle Ages, people that worked with wood and would build and design things for other people. So all the carpenters in a Middle Ages town, they might agree to charge the same rate for their work. They would agree to not make it the price cheaper. They wanted, if everybody charged the same price, you could make sure all of the carpenters